Mr. Thaddeus, sorry, akasa. Na according to him, no say the reason intia the client a petition say you Torkornoo no na because of Afenyo Markin. It was one of the reasons intia Thaddeus sorry the client a petition say yi Torkornoo and free office as Chief Justice. Monim say Ebra yebe yi Torkornoo no first 3 petitions and I didn't country koye. Later on a 2 be count. But committee now poor minum etna no. They worked on 3 petitions and omujai 2 no. And the petitions no na Mr. Thaddeus sorry ni client dear kamubi. Yeah. Na according to him no or say at the crop potting tia the client no ekoko petition aban say you Torkornoo because of Afenyo Markin. They say mo kai say time na Afenyo Markin majority leader no MPs be ebinum every parliament and I say it was like some of them resigned and almost munko bill something like that. Yeah, me refuse as 7 kakra. But BBC Emma MPP MPs ni bi so tie ewo mra shebe dwafie enti baby ana akodu na say NDC fo no do se chen omo ena afedie majority speaker of parliament declare NDC say wo mu na say majority no wo mu side ena to force ye leader na Afenyo Markin so onti ase da ewa na Afenyo Markin case in the Supreme Court, not Torkornoo tiko as Chief Justice. Within some few hours, na your man hearing, na Afenyo Markin back so a majority leader. To Mr. Thaddeus sorry, kasa o KSM shoes no say. Because of sad dear na Afenyo Markin you know. Torkornoo so man hearing within some few hours, you know. Sad dear a very dangerous, a dangerous president, Edma Omino. And again, omushishe munu na say Afenyo Markin Torkornoo is like a sister to him. Na wabua Torkornoo okwan bebre so. We ensema Thaddeus sorry kan wo KSM show so. And only the reason intia the client petition aban say you Torkornoo yenti no.
Apart from the disrespect to the nominee, it even went further to affect another justice, the most senior justice of the day. Justice Puaman, who was the chairman of the committee that recommended that the Chief Justice be removed. To some extent, I would blame Justice Puaman because, as I have said, I think I've said here or somewhere that his own report is the problem. The minority leader was one of the reasons why I petitioned, or my client petitioned for the removal of the Chief Justice. There was a huge count which mentioned his name and mentioned the acts that formed the basis of our petition. What was this count? We said he had set a precedent, in fact, a record in the court by being the only party or being the only person who within 2 hours was able to get a full panel of the Supreme Court presided over by the erstwhile Chief Justice to give him orders that by the scope of the application before the court, no court in the world of the common law jurisdiction will give him. Now, in the course of all of those proceedings and after, people who knew the two of them spoke to me and they said, don't you understand? That is his sister. The removed Chief Justice is his sister. When
sister in terms of
Ghana, really? They come from the same place.
Okay.
1, 2, when her father died, the minority leader hosted her visitors. And people who were there called me. So in some of if I had attended the next proceedings, the next person against whom I was going to raise that objection was the Chief Justice. I said, all of these arguments we are having back and forth, and you are literally descending into the arena of conflict, is because somebody that you are close to is the plaintiff in this particular matter. Who was the plaintiff? It is Afenyo Markin. 2, there is now information coming out that there are services being rendered in the judicial service, which are linked to Afenyo Markin. He's rendering those services and getting commercial profits from them, and huge ones. And so, at this point in time, when Afenyo Markin is making it look like, okay, there's a national public interest aspect of all of this nomination process, and there's some dispute and all of that, it has nothing to do with a minority position. He sold it out to his colleagues to believe that, well, we all have to take a collective position against this, but it is a personal interest. And so the facts that we have show that you have an interest in her being there. And so he's crying louder than every other person because he has an interest in the woman being there. I think they should look at this whole idea of prior approval, that the Constitution didn't say vetting. It said prior approval of Parliament. There ought to be another way of, when they look at your CV and they've done your background checks, if they are calling you for any vetting, then there are specific areas they want you to clarify. Otherwise, Parliament should do an acclamation and you go. And then if you go and you can't deliver, your appointer is there, he will sack you. Yeah. But they keep all of us glued to television. And we are sitting down there and watching a process that 95% of is a joke. If the AG says he wants a docket now, and you can have an excuse, and the AG is getting jittery, you can understand. That, you have even told Ghanaians that way back, you tried to stop the man because you had reasons to stop him. 1 year into a regime, you are still investigating. So what is the basis for seeking to stop him previously? And the Constitution is very clear. Some people even still think that his position is untenable in view of the Constitution. But there's a small provision in it that I understand. In his enabling enactment, it is stated clearly that he can prosecute on the authorization of the AG. So how can it be then that he's on equal footing with the AG?
That the AG has authorized?
Absolutely. In his enabling enactment, the OSP's enabling enactment, he can prosecute with the authorization of the AG. So it's not as if it's between he and the AG, there's a split of power. The power is in the AG. So it's clear in my mind that he can't say, oh, there seems to be, he has to acknowledge that the AG, insofar as his work is concerned, is the overall, is the repository of power. Yeah. OSP shall be independent. OSP shall be independent. And so you see in the first line of this section 4 also, they say, oh, he shall not be subject to the direction and control. I say, right following that, then they say that he shall prosecute on the authorization of the AG subject to Article 88. Wow. Because the AG's powers are not from the statute, from an act of parliament. They are from the Constitution. So he has overriding power. And the Constitution says that every criminal proceeding in this country shall be instituted by the Attorney General. How can an act of parliament take that away from the AG? That is not, it can't be correct. The AG is the overriding center of power insofar as criminal prosecution is concerned. And the act that establishes the OSP acknowledges it. So let's have some clarity on it, and let's have some humility in terms of power. If he acknowledges that, I'm sure he will work very well with the AG, and he doesn't have to explain to us that we're friends and we understand what we are doing. It's not what you are doing. You do what the law says you should do. Nobody cares what your relationship with him is. How this OSP from 2014 to 2015, when they said there shall be an OSP who will make sure that all of this is dead, and we are seeing nothing. We are only seeing talk, and talk which doesn't.
All credit to KSM. You see, that's it. Where on earth, will be the issue beko Supreme Court within few hours. Na man part the hearing. Say a cultural cases are Madam Torkornoo eja to Supreme Court before leaving. Now you'll be shocked. Say that no moyano. Say what the case by Supreme Court ho. Na say case in the kwati ya baina ya jitina so yan ruli. Biti say e-levy. Yan ruli e-levy. And yes, NDC ya bain ba ya no betwe mu anka. NDC for e-levy case in that so to kurantachi. LGBTQ debe san kwase ade no case no koye no ana ye pese ye yi free ho na president Akufo-Addo sign no omo gitina so eka few days ama Akufo-Addo free power and omo ye hearing solve for case na the Supreme Court Torkornoo antachi na cases we nyina da ho and so Afenyo Markin case ana eye new e say e pian twin chan dealing with old matters no omo de buy within some hours na aye hearing say Afenyo Markin is majority leader on court NDC for so munti ase and the etisa Torkornoo mbra parliament be implementing the ruling no and a Torkornoo respond e no ka kire omo say se mo se mundi mbra so no problem na se munya asem after election na mamun famba Supreme Court. You see, most of you na munti ase the reason that once before the election Torkornoo ka kire Torkornoo make a statement be say we say umfa Supreme Court enya hwia there's no problem na say asem sia and after election unya problem ma mfa asem ba Supreme Court because wo dey asem na ba Supreme Court yen ye be gi asem na tetim ye be bu atu agu yen ma ruling ye wie na say Supreme Court and Chief Justice wants political parties and so no the NDC because now MPP for him say they will rig the election to rig election na NDC intimi nyahwe omo de be court and court no so mbe ba be Torkornoo ho Torkornoo na be hearing this a Torkornoo rule say Afenyo a majority leader that's all muntie dia no problem say rig election if you know omo de ba obeji asem na bo atu agu asem a Torkornoo kind no this political chief justice ye jana man at office such person ye allow no man in office at the chief justice Torkornoo no share party colors but ocean and me ya you don't need a PhD to know say Torkornoo no ye MPP ni you don't need a PhD na ye then a petition na petition ye between Torkornoo friends saying friends who council of state ni president na Afenyo Markin got na TV say we ready petition bi onya no wen onya petition wa hinkan meaning it is Torkornoo na liki petition ma Afenyo ready bi say yen Torkornoo na ma Afenyo ready petition bi Afenyo Markin enya petition we na kwaka so na TV so ready because me hu ye petition na president na be wo bi onya no forward the ma council of state and odi bi ma Torkornoo na nkasa until 3 people supposed to have it Afenyo Markin ya petition no we no kan sa 3 petitions na dey yin no onya na he po am tado sorry kasa oti ye o say ye say friends Torkornoo say ne ma me say ne papa wu ya Afenyo Markin na host ni dia won fees den yo this such person when the nya case no the Supreme Court na Torkornoo chief justice oberuli ama and you still want us to maintain such person. That's why some of us say maintain Torkornoo no or be ya adwuma magana na MPP. Abusia, munchira madwen.